5 years after the death of Colony 7, the war was finally ending. Admiral Chen Wei-lin stood in the grand chamber of the hegemony homeworld. The room was large and beautiful, built to show the power and glory of a great empire. Now it felt empty, broken, like the empire itself. The hegemony had been reduced to a single solar system. Their great fleet was gone. Their allies had abandoned them. Their economy had collapsed. They had not been defeated by human weapons alone. They had been defeated by human patience. The humans had not needed to bomb their cities or burn their fields. They had simply cut off the hegemony from the rest of the galaxy. No trade, no supplies, no help. Then they waited. Humans were very good at waiting. Chun looked at the delegation that had come to meet her. There were generals and politicians, priests and merchants. All of them looked tired, defeated, afraid. And there, in the middle of them, stood Cathforan. He was old now. His scales had lost their color. His mandibles were cracked. 5 years of war had broken him in ways that weapons never could. He had been the one to give the order that started everything. Now he was here to see how it ended. "Admiral Chun," said the hegemony chancellor, stepping forward, "we are here to discuss terms of surrender. What does humanity want from us?" Chun was quiet for a long moment. Behind her, a holographic display showed the names of the Colony 7 dead. 3,000 names. 400 of them children. One of them was Maya Chun, her 9-year-old niece who had wanted to be a starship captain. What did humanity want? They could ask for anything: territory, resources, ships, technology. The hegemony would give them whatever they demanded. They had no choice. Chen had thought about this moment for 5 years. She had imagined it during long nights when she could not sleep. She had pictured herself standing in this room, facing the beings who had killed her family. She had expected to feel anger, hatred, a desire for revenge. Instead, she felt only tired and sad and determined to make sure this never happened again. "We want one thing," she said finally. Her voice was calm and clear. "We want you to remember." The hegemony delegation looked confused. They had expected demands for wealth and power. They had not expected this. "Remember?" the chancellor asked. "Remember what?" Chum stepped forward until she was standing directly in front of Cathforan. She looked into his 4 eyes. She saw fear there, and guilt, and something that might have been understanding. "Every year, on the anniversary of Colony 7, your people will speak the names of those you killed," she said. "All 3,000 names, including the 400 children. You will teach this to your children, and they will teach it to their children. This will continue for as long as your species exists." The delegation was silent. Cathforan stared at her with something like shock. "You will build a memorial on your homeworld," Chung continued. "A place where anyone can come and learn what happened. Learn why it was wrong. Learn what it cost." She turned to address the entire delegation. "You expected us to take your planets, your ships, your wealth. Those things mean nothing to us. We did not fight this war for territory or resources. We fought it because you killed our children. And now you will remember them forever. And if we refuse?" Cathforan asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "Then we continue." Chen's voice carried no anger, no satisfaction, just the cold certainty of a species that had crossed oceans, survived ice ages, and walked on the moon through pure stubbornness. "We are very patient, Ambassador. We have been chasing things since before we could speak. We do not stop. We do not forget. We do not forgive." She stepped closer to him. "But we can learn to live with our enemies," she said, her voice softening slightly. "If they earn it, if they remember, if they teach their children that what they did was wrong." Keth Vorn closed his eyes. He thought about the day he had given the order to attack Colony 7. He had been so proud, so confident. He had thought he was showing strength. Now he understood that true strength was not about killing. True strength was about choosing not to kill when you had every right to do so. The humans could destroy the hegemony completely. They had the power. They had earned the right through 5 years of blood and sacrifice. But they were choosing mercy instead, not because they were weak, because they were strong enough to be merciful. "We accept your terms," Keth Vorn said. His voice was thick with emotion. "We will remember. We will teach our children. We will never forget what we did." Chun nodded slowly. "Then the war is over." The treaty was signed that day. The hegemony agreed to humanity's terms. No territory was taken. No resources were demanded. Just a promise to remember. 1 year later, on the first anniversary of the peace, the memorial was completed. It stood in the center of the hegemony capital. A simple stone structure with 3,000 names carved into its walls. Keth Vorn was there for the ceremony. He stood before the memorial and read every name out loud. It took hours. His voice broke many times. But he did not stop when he reached the children's names. He wept. Beings from across the galaxy came to watch. They saw the former ambassador of a great empire, brought to tears by the weight of what his people had done. And they learned. They learned that humanity was not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. They were not the most numerous, but they were the most relentless, the most patient, the most determined. They remembered their dead. They honored their promises. They showed mercy to those who had shown them. None. And that made them the most dangerous species of all. Not because they could destroy their enemies, but because they could make their enemies remember why they should never have been enemies. In the first place, the war was over. The healing could begin. And across the galaxy, species who had thought about attacking humanity changed their minds, because now everyone knew the truth. You could fight humans. You could hurt them. You could even kill them, but you would never defeat them, and you would never, ever be allowed to forget. 3 years had passed since the war began. Keth Vorn sat alone in the cargo bay of a refugee transport. His rank was gone. His honor was gone. Everything he had worked for his entire life was gone. He was just another body now, helping to move civilians away from the advancing human forces. The transport was old and tired. Like him, like the entire hegemony, he thought about the early days of the war. After the first great battle, the hegemony commanders had been confident. They had lost many ships, yes, but they had more. They could build more. The humans would run out of resources. They would get tired. They would give up. That was what sensible species did. They fought for a while. They counted their losses. They made peace. The humans did not make peace. Every month, more human ships appeared. Not many. Never as many as the hegemony had. But they were always there. Always pushing. Always hunting. Keth Vorn had learned many things about humans during these 3 years. Things that kept him awake at night. Things that made him understand why the Varathi had been so afraid. He learned that humans did not sleep like normal beings. Other species needed 8 or 10 hours of rest. Their brains shut down completely. They were helpless during this time. Humans only needed 4 or 5 hours. And even then, only half their brains slept at a time. The other half stayed alert, watching, listening. They were never truly unconscious. They were never truly safe to attack. He learned that humans could survive wounds that would kill any other creature. He had seen reports of human soldiers who had lost arms, lost legs, had holes blown through their bodies. They did not die. They kept fighting. Their flesh healed itself. Their bones grew back. Not perfectly, but enough. One report described a human pilot who had been shot down over a hegemony planet. Both her legs were broken. She crawled 15 miles through enemy territory over 3 days to reach her rescue point. When they found her, she was still conscious, still fighting. She had killed 12 hegemony soldiers during her crawl. With broken legs, he learned that humans formed bonds with everything. Their fellow soldiers, their ships, their weapons, even small animals they kept as pets. They gave names to things that had no names. They talked to machines as if the machines could hear. And when those bonds were broken, when their friends died or their ships were destroyed, the humans did not become sad and weak. They became angry and strong. Every loss fueled them. Every death added to their determination. He learned the most terrifying thing about humans. They remembered everything. The hegemony had tried to make the humans forget. They had offered peace. They had offered money. They had offered territory. Twice, they had formally surrendered. Both times the humans sent back the same message. You have not paid enough. The names of the Colony 7 dead were everywhere now. The humans had carved them into their ships. They painted them on their armor. They spoke them before every battle like a prayer. 3,000 names. 400 of them children. Every human soldier carried a list. Every human pilot knew the names by heart. They were not just fighting a war. They were collecting a debt that could never be fully paid. Cathvorin remembered something Elder Crystalline had said. When humans hunt, they do not stop. She had been right. 3 years of war. Millions dead on both sides. Cities burned. Planets destroyed. And still the humans came. They did not fight like other species. They did not seek glory or conquest. They did not want to rule the hegemony. They wanted something worse. They wanted the hegemony to feel what they had felt. They wanted them to know the pain of losing their children, their homes, their sense of safety. And they were patient. So terribly patient that the transport shook suddenly. Cathvorn grabbed a support bar as alarms began to wail. He heard shouting from the bridge. Human ships. 3 of them. They came out of nowhere. Cathvorn felt his heart sink. 3 ships against 1 unarmed transport. This was the end. But the attack never came. Instead, a human voice came over the communication system. It spoke in perfect hegemony language. Clear, calm, almost kind. Hegemony transport. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the U.E.'s Little Maya. We have scanned your ship. You are carrying civilians, women, non-combatants. There was a pause. You may go. Cathvorn could not believe what he was hearing. The humans were letting them go? After everything? We do not make war on the innocent, the voice continued. We are not you. Safe travels, transport. May your children live long lives. The human ships moved away. They vanished into the darkness of space, hunting for military targets. Leaving the civilians unharmed, Cathvorn sat down heavily. His legs would not support him anymore. He thought about the day he had ordered the attack on Colony 7. He remembered feeling proud, powerful, superior. He had called the humans weak, soft, emotional. He had been wrong about everything. The humans were not weak. They were the strongest species in the galaxy. Strong enough to destroy their enemies. Strong enough to spare the innocent. Strong enough to keep fighting for 3 years without losing their purpose or their principles. They could have killed everyone on this transport. No one would have blamed them. But they chose mercy, because that was who they were, and that made them more terrifying than any monster, because Cathvorn finally understood the truth. The humans were not fighting to destroy the hegemony. They were fighting to prove a point. They were fighting to show the galaxy that Attacking humanity was the worst mistake anyone could ever make, not because humans were cruel, but because humans were just. And justice, Cathvorin realized, was far more frightening than cruelty could ever be. The transport continued on its way. Behind them, the war continued. More battles, more death, more names added to the endless lists. And the humans kept coming. They would always keep coming, until the debt was paid. Admiral Chen Weilin stood on the bridge of her flagship. The ship was called the Remembrance. It was named for her niece, Maya, who had died on Colony 7. Maya had been 9 years old. She had loved painting and wanted to be a starship captain when she grew up. Now, she was Ash. Chun looked at the tactical display. It showed 12,000 hegemony ships arranged in perfect formation. They were beautiful in a way. Neat rows, clean lines. Textbook military positioning. 300 human ships faced them. The numbers were not good. "Admiral," said Commander Torres, her second in command, "the enemy fleet is moving into attack position. They are preparing for a standard engagement." Chun nodded slowly. A standard engagement. That was what the hegemony expected. 2 fleets would line up. They would exchange fire. The bigger fleet would win. Simple math. Humans were never good at following other people's rules. "How many pilots do we have in the drone squadrons?" Chun asked. 7,000, Admiral. All volunteers. Chun thought about that. 7,000 men and women who had chosen to fly tiny ships against impossible odds. They all knew they might not come back. They had volunteered anyway. This was what the hegemony did not understand about humans. They fought not because they thought they would win. They fought because some things were worth fighting for. Some things were worth dying for. "Launch the drones." Chun ordered Dot from every human ship. Thousands of small craft burst into space. They looked like weapons platforms. They were not. Most of them were tricks. Sensor ghosts. Communication jammers. Electronic warfare suites that would turn the enemy's own technology against them. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. They had learned every dirty trick in the book. And they had written a few new chapters. The hegemony fleet reacted immediately. They started firing at the drones. Their weapons were powerful. Their aim was good. They destroyed hundreds of drones in the first minute, but there were thousands more. And while the hegemony was busy shooting at shadows, the human ships began to move. "All ships. Execute pattern Delta 7, Chun commanded. The human fleet did not charge forward like a proper military force. They scattered. They spread out in all directions. They used asteroids for cover. They hid in radiation clouds. They did things that no sane commander would do because the risks were too high. The hegemony commander sent a message to his captains. "They are running. They are cowards. Hunt them down." It was a mistake. The hegemony ships broke formation to chase the fleeing humans. They spread out across the battlefield. They lost their neat lines and clean formations. And then the humans stopped running. They turned. All of them. At the same moment. And they attacked. The hegemony expected the humans to fight like civilized beings. Form lines. Exchange volleys. Play by the rules. Humans had no rules. The human ships swarmed like angry insects. They attacked from above, from below, from behind. They never stayed in one place. They hit and ran. They appeared from nowhere and vanished before the hegemony could respond. "They fight like animals," the hegemony commander screamed. "No honor. No discipline." He was wrong. They had discipline. They had more discipline than any military in the galaxy. But their discipline was not about formations and rules. It was about something deeper. It was about trust. Every human pilot knew that their friends would be where they needed to be. They did not need to see each other. They did not need to communicate. They just knew. The battle lasted 6 hours. At the end, 8,000 hegemony ships were destroyed or captured. The human fleet had lost 47 vessels. Admiral Chun stood on her bridge and watched the survivors run. She felt no joy, no triumph, just cold, empty purpose. "Admiral," Torres said quietly, "we have prisoners. 300,000 hegemony crew members surrendered. What should we do with them?" Chun thought about Maya, about the 400 children who had died screaming when the hegemony bombs fell. It would be easy to take revenge. It would feel good, but that was not who they were. "Treat them according to the conventions of war," she said. "Feed them. Give them medical care. Send them home when the war is over." Torres looked surprised. "After what they did?" "After what their leaders did," Chun corrected. "These soldiers were following orders. They did not choose to kill our children. We do not punish the innocent for the crimes of the guilty." She turned to face her crew. "That is what makes us different. That is what makes us human. We have the power to destroy them all. We have the right to take revenge. But we choose not to. We choose to be better." She looked back at the tactical display. The hegemony homeworld was still far away. There would be more battles, more death, more pain. "But we will not stop," she continued. "Not until the ones responsible are brought to justice. Not until they understand what they did. Not until they remember the names of everyone who died on Colony 7. The fleet regrouped. They collected their dead. They repaired their ships. And then they moved forward. Behind them, the debris of 8,000 hegemony ships drifted in the void. A warning to anyone who might think of standing in their way. The humans were coming, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them. News of the battle spread quickly. Species across the galaxy heard about the small human fleet that had destroyed an armada. They heard about the swarm tactics, the electronic warfare, the relentless pursuit, and they heard about the prisoners. 300,000 enemies, treated with kindness instead of revenge. Some species thought the humans were weak for showing mercy. They would learn the truth soon enough that mercy was not weakness. Mercy was strength. It took more courage to spare an enemy than to kill. Them, the humans, had proven they could destroy their enemies. Now they had proven they could choose not to. That made them more terrifying than any monster the galaxy had ever seen, because a monster could be predicted. A monster could be understood, but a species that could be both gentle and deadly, kind and ruthless, merciful and merciless, that was something new. That was humanity. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest in recorded history. Every species that could send a delegate did so. The Great Hall was packed with beings of all shapes and sizes. They had come to hear the Varathi speak about humanity. Elder Crystalline, as the humans had named her, stood at the center of the chamber. Her body glowed with soft light as she prepared to share knowledge that her people had kept secret for thousands of years. "What I am about to tell you," she began, "is known only to the oldest species in the galaxy. We kept it secret because we hoped it would never matter. We hoped that humanity would remain on their small planet forever. We were wrong." She waved her hand, and the chamber filled with holographic images. They showed a blue and green planet, Earth. 12,000 years ago, my ancestors discovered this world, she said. They were excited. The planet was rich in resources. It had water. It had life. It seemed perfect for colonization. The image zoomed in to show the surface. Mountains, oceans, forests, and creatures. Many, many creatures. But when they studied the planet more closely, they became afraid. Elder Crystalline's voice grew heavy. This was not a normal world. This was what we call a death world. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. They all knew what a death world was. A planet so dangerous that intelligent life should not be able to evolve there. Earth has extreme gravity compared to most inhabited worlds. Its weather is violent and unpredictable. It has earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, fires. The temperature can change by 50 degrees in a single day. She paused. And then there are the predators. The hologram showed various earth creatures: lions, sharks, bears, snakes, wolves, crocodiles. The delegates watched in horror. Every part of that planet is trying to kill you. Elder Crystalline continued. The land, the sea, the air. Even the smallest creatures carry diseases that can destroy entire populations. She changed the image to show early humans. Small, naked, weak-looking. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom, and yet these beings survived. Not just survived, they thrived. They became the dominant species on a world that should have killed them 1,000 times over. She showed images of humans hunting mammoths, building fires, creating tools. How? Asked a delegate from the Corthan Empire. They look so fragile. How did they survive? They are pursuit predators, Elder Crystalline explained. Most predators in the galaxy ambush their prey. They hide. They wait. They strike quickly. If they miss, they give up and try again later. She showed a human chasing an animal across a grassland. Humans do not give up. They follow their prey. They walk and walk and walk. They do not need to be fast. They just need to keep moving. Eventually, their prey becomes tired. It overheats. It collapses. And then the human catches it. The chamber was silent. The delegates were starting to understand. They are also pack hunters, she continued. They work together. They communicate. They form bonds with each other that are stronger than most species can imagine. A human will die to protect their family, their friends, their children. She looked directly at where Keth Voran sat. He had not been allowed to leave the station. You killed 400 human children, Ambassador. You did not just hurt 400 families. You hurt all of humanity. Because to them, every child is precious. Every child belongs to everyone. Keth Voran said nothing. His scales had turned pale. But this is not the most dangerous thing about humans, Elder Crystalline said. The most dangerous thing is their minds. The hologram changed to show human achievements throughout history. The pyramids, the Great Wall, ships crossing oceans, planes filling the sky, rockets reaching space. They never accept that something is impossible. When they wanted to fly, they built machines that could fly. When they wanted to reach their moon, they built rockets using controlled explosions and rode them into space. When they wanted to split atoms, they did it. When they wanted to map their own genetic code, they did it. She turned to face the full council. Every obstacle makes them stronger. Every failure teaches them. Every enemy unites them. They have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters that would have ended any other species. But we have better technology, someone shouted. We have bigger ships. More weapons. Do you? Elder Crystalline asked. 100 years ago, humans had never left their solar system. Now they have colonies on 20 worlds. They have matched technology that took other species thousands of years to develop. They learn. They adapt. They steal. They improve. She showed images of human soldiers throughout history. Ancient warriors with swords. Modern soldiers with guns. Future warriors in powered armor. And they have been fighting each other for their entire existence. They have 10,000 years of military experience. They know every trick, every tactic, every dirty move that can be made in war. The chamber was completely silent now. My people decided long ago to never make contact with humanity, Elder Crystalline said. We hoped they would stay on their planet. We hoped they would destroy themselves in their endless wars. But they did not. They reached the stars. And now you have given them a reason to show the galaxy what they truly are. She looked at Kethvorn one last time. You did not start a war, Ambassador. You started a hunt. And when humans hunt, they do not stop until they catch their prey. It does not matter how long it takes. It does not matter how far they have to go. It does not matter how many of them die trying. She began to walk toward the exit. They will come for you. All of you who supported this attack. They will remember every name, every face, every ship that was involved. And they will not rest until they have their revenge. What do we do? Kethvorn called out. His voice was shaking. How do we stop them? Elder Crystalline paused at the door. She turned back with something that might have been pity in her ancient eyes. You cannot stop them, she said simply. You can only hope that when they are done, there is something left of your civilization to rebuild. Then she was gone, and the Galactic Council sat in terrified silence, waiting for the storm that was coming. 3 days later, the first human fleet was spotted in hegemony space. It was smaller than expected. Only 300 ships against 12,000. But the hegemony commanders who saw those ships felt something they had never felt before. Fear. Because those ships were not named for heroes or victories. They were named for the dead, children of Colony 7, and they were coming to collect the dead. Ambassador Kethvorn walked into the great hall of the Galactic Council with his head held high. His blue scales shined under the bright lights. His 4 eyes looked around at the many alien species sitting in their seats. He felt proud. He felt powerful. Today was a good day for the Hegemony Collective. The Hegemony had ruled this part of the galaxy for 300 years. They had the biggest fleet. They had the most planets. When they spoke, other species listened. When they gave orders, other species obeyed. This was the natural way of things. Kethvorn stepped onto the speaking platform. Behind him, a large screen showed a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. The humans called it Earth. The Hegemony called it their next conquest. Fellow members of the council, Kethvorn began. His voice was smooth and confident. I come before you today with news about the human species. The hall went quiet. Everyone knew about the humans. They were a young species. They had only discovered faster than light travel about 100 years ago. They were small. They were weak. They had few ships and fewer weapons. They were nothing special. 3 cycles ago, we sent our terms to Earth, Kethvorn continued. We offered them a place in our empire. They would pay tribute. They would follow our laws. In return, we would protect them from the dangers of the galaxy. He paused for effect. His mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his kind. They refused. A murmur went through the crowd. Refusing the hegemony was not something species did. It was not wise. It was not safe. But that is not all, Kethvorn said. When our ambassador delivered the terms, the human leader laughed. He laughed at us. He said that humanity does not bow to anyone. He said they would rather die standing than live on their knees. The murmur grew louder. This was unusual. This was foolish. This was suicide. Therefore, Kethvorn announced, I authorized a demonstration of our power. Our fleet attacked their outer colony, a small mining settlement called Colony 7. 3,000 humans lived there. Now none do. The hall fell silent again. But this time, the silence felt different. Kethvorn noticed that several delegates had gone very still. The Vorathi delegate, an ancient being made of living crystal, had begun to glow with a strange light. "The humans now understand our strength," Kethvorin said proudly. "They will accept our terms. They have no choice." "Ambassador," a quiet voice spoke up. It was the Varathi delegate. She rose slowly from her seat. She was old, so very old. Her people had been traveling the stars when most other species were still living in caves. "Ambassador, did you say Colony 7 was a mining settlement?" Kethvorin nodded. "Yes, a resource extraction facility. Nothing important. And the 3,000 who lived there," the Varathi continued, her voice growing harder. "Were they soldiers? Warriors?" "No, miners, workers, some support staff." Kethvorin did not understand the question. "Why does this matter? Were there children?" The question hung in the air like poison. Kethvorin felt his confidence slip for the first time. "Some," he admitted. "Perhaps 400. It was a family settlement. But this is war. Casualties are expected." The Varathi made a sound like breaking glass. It was a sound of horror. It was a sound of fear. "You fool," she whispered. "You absolute fool." Before Kethvorin could respond, every screen in the chamber went dark. Then they all lit up with the same message. The message was in every language known to the galaxy. It was broadcast on every frequency. The message was from Earth. Message from Earth. "Unified command, you killed 3,000 of us. You killed our families. You killed our children. Congratulations. You have just begun a galactic war against the deadliest beings known. We are coming." The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates were shouting. Some were running for the exits. Others were calling for their ships to be made ready. But Kethvorin just stood there, reading the message again and again. Deadliest beings known? The humans? Those soft, fragile creatures with only 2 eyes and no scales? Those beings who could not even breathe underwater or survive in vacuum. They were the deadliest? "You do not understand," the Varathi said. She had moved closer to him. Her crystal body was shaking. "You do not know what you have done." "They are bluffing," Kethvorin said. But his voice had lost its confidence. "They have maybe 500 ships. We have 12,000. They cannot touch us." "Numbers mean nothing to humans," the Varathi replied. "My people have watched them for 12,000 years. We watched them before they had fire. We watched them hunt animals 10 times their size with sticks and stones. We watched them survive ice ages that killed most life on their planet. We watched them split atoms and walk on their moon." She grabbed his arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "We watched them fight wars against each other. Wars that killed millions. Wars over ideas. Wars over pride. Wars over revenge." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And we learned something very important about humans." "What?" Kethvorin asked. He could not look away from her glowing eyes. "They do not forget. They do not forgive. And they do not stop, ever." She released his arm. "You killed their children, Ambassador. You killed 400 children. In human culture, there is no greater crime. There is no greater insult. You have not started a war. You have started a hunt. And humanity is the greatest hunter the galaxy has ever seen." Kethvorin wanted to argue. He wanted to say that she was wrong, that the humans were weak, that the hegemony would crush them easily. But then the reports started coming in. The first hegemony border station had gone dark. All hands lost. The attack had taken 11 minutes. A second station followed. Then a third. The humans were not waiting for negotiations. They were not sending diplomats. They were not asking for peace. They were coming, just like they promised. And as Kethvorin watched the reports pile up, he began to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. He had poked a sleeping beast. He had heard its children. Now the beast was awake. Now the beast was angry. And now the beast was coming for them all. The war had begun.